a question that I got multiple times. So what I'm going to go over in this video is, or this live, before we get into Q&A, is I got the question, Kevin, did you always want to be a fitness model and an influencer? So was this always my goal, kind of doing what I do today? With the Healthy Flex prescription, being a full-time, online coach, having this online coaching company and making that my full-time kind of, journey. What did I originally want to do? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you guys through my entire fitness journey. I am 15 years. Actually, yeah, that's it. 15 years into my fitness journey. And I'm going to tell you guys kind of like what were the lessons that I learned along the way and kind of why I am where I am today. I feel like a lot of times you get people that have been in like the fitness game for a long period of time, but it's like kind of were you just born super duper fit? Did you just kind of like, pick the right parents or, what was the situation? And so I don't know if you guys know about me, but I was not born as a fit person. So we'll go my fitness journey. So for me growing up, I was kind of, yeah, I'll show you guys. So I was just historically, I was an overweight kid. I remember my basketball coach said that I was husky. So here is some of my old photos. So were you skinny when you were younger? And then I got a bunch of like my younger photos. You can see, I think the top, which from what you guys see, top right was like 7th grade. The other two on the sides, the middle and side one, those are probably like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And then I think that was like 7th, 8th grade. Also, I'm in the basketball jersey. So for me, that was just kind of like what I was growing up. And honestly, I was picked last at recess a lot of the times, was not a very fit kid. And honestly, to be fully transparent, I was bullied a lot for my weight, especially back in like, 3rd, 4th grade. I was the husky kid. I'm a taller person. So they called me actually when I moved schools. So I grew up in one place until I was 10 years old. And then in 4th grade, I moved it was Edgewater Park, New Jersey. And then I moved to Delran, New Jersey. And when I went over to that school and I was just meeting new people, I was just this tall, bigger, heavy-set kid. And so they called me, like I had a nickname that came up for me, which was Big Man. They called me Big Man just because I was a big boy. I was relatively tall, but I was a heavy guy. And so for me, kind of just growing up, that's kind of historically, where I was. And so I also, in 5th grade, I wanted to play football for the first time. And I was too heavy to play football for my age group. So what happened was I wanted to play football. This was 5th grade. I was 135 pounds. And the limit for like my age group, I think it was like 125 or so. And I wasn't able to play in the football team that was the max was like 150 pounds, I believe in that. But I think it was called the 150s. So according to weight, I would have had to play on that team, but I was too heavy. I was too young to play in my weight class. So that was going to be typically 6th, 7th, 8th graders. And since I was a 5th grader, they weren't going to put me with those kids, and I wasn't able to play football that year. There was actually an unlimiteds team that was like a couple towns away that I was talking to my mom, like, oh, maybe I can play there. And it was just like strictly by age. You can weigh whatever. But it would have been a commute, and just it didn't play out. And also, so I just waited a year for football. So I was too heavy growing up to even play football. So that's my background. So I've been a heavy kid, and that was all the way up until I'd say like high school pretty much. So again, grew up overweight, played sports, but and kind of the situation that I got into this was I played a lot of sports, but I played even more video games. Played basketball. I got into football, of course, later middle school. I played soccer growing up when I was like very young. I was I was always the defender that could just toe ball the ball very far as a defender. But I couldn't control if I was going to hit, the toe dead center and it would get launched, or if I would like toe it a little bit off. But I was a defender. But so people ask me, did you always want to be a fitness model and influencer? And so I wrote in my notes, like I did always want to be fit. I saw the kids that were fit at school, running around being, in good shape. It was, I don't know. In middle school, I was like, yeah, I know what 6-pack abs are. I was like, those are pretty cool, but I'm far from it for sure. But my Call of Duty KD was awesome. So did I always want to be fit? I feel like probably middle school, high school, when I was getting more aware, like I always wanted to be in a better position than I was, but I just thought like my family historically, wasn't super fit. Like if I looked at my cousins, my parents, everything, like we weren't like a super fit family. My oldest sister though, she was very athletic, but it was kind of like the men in my family, typically we weren't super athletic or fit dudes, fit looking. And so, and a lot of smoking in my family. So we just didn't have a lot of healthy, habits at that time. There's a lot of smoking and drinking kind of, in my extended family. And this is just kind of, I'm just telling my story. And so eventually, so I always blame myself. Thought that I just had crap genetics, but eventually I did try getting fit. So this was going into high school. Me and my buddy, so all this time I was like, oh, it's my genetics. There's nothing I can do. My family's just not, meant to be fit. And so what happened was in my family, or this was around, this was freshman year of high school. So growing up was overweight. We'll just say that. And that's all like, pre-2009. And then this will be, we'll say 2009. No, this is 2008. Graduated 8th grade. And me and my buddy, we said, this is going to be my run a mile. Me and my buddy, both overweight guys, we said we're going to run a mile every day of the summer because we knew if we run a mile every day over the summer, we're both overweight dudes, we're going to get super fit. We're going to have six-pack abs, and we're going to show up freshman year of high school, and, the junior girls and the senior girls, they're just going to be like, oh, who are these, shredded freshmen? And that's what we envisioned in our heads. What ended up happening in this first attempt at fitness for myself was we showed up on day one at the high school track. We walked our mile, and then we ended up just sitting in the bleachers, and we hung out until the Pizza Hut buffet down the street opened up, and then we went to the buffet in a calorie surplus for that day. On the second day, we did the same thing, and then we ended up at the Pizza Hut buffet. And then we kind of just said to each other, like, maybe this is not our year, and like we'll try it again next year. So that's my first attempt at fitness. So if like you're somebody who has like tried fitness, it just hasn't worked out, you're figuring out you've worked hard and you're just like not seeing results, like that was me. That was my first attempt. I'm just gonna run off the weight, and then I ended up at the Pizza Hut buffet. And so that was my first attempt. My second attempt, and this was going to be right after here, and this is where I actually got some success. So this would be 2009, so late, yes. So it would be spring freshman year high school. So for me, I started out going to track. So I started going to track practice. My oldest sister, she knew the track coach, and like she kind of got me signed up to be a thrower in track. So javelin, discus, shot put throwing. So spring 2009 came up. That was freshman year. Got on like the track throwing team, and that was my first time getting into the actual gym. I dabbled though. So this was probably, April, May 2009. So that's why I can say I've trained for 15 years. But this was it was dabbling. Like we would go in there, we semi had some structure, but it wasn't like we were really, really on it as far as that, training. But for me, it was, I still have to count it because I got into the gym, but we still had some stuff. We did our presses, we did our pulls, and I think I still started to learn, but I think the practices would be, we go outside, we throw stuff, and then sometimes we get like 30 minutes of lifting, or like it wasn't super mega. I feel consistent for myself, like maybe 3 workouts a week, but that was me getting in there. So that would be the ignition point of like, okay, so I actually like started strength training, and that's kind of what that looks like. And then where I feel things started was when I started P90X, which was, I think I started that in the summer 2009, started P90X. And this was the first time that I actually like really got consistent. So, and I changed my nutrition because I found out, I wasn't in a place that I wanted to be. I was, playing hours of video games per day. I was eating calorie-dense foods, and I just didn't have the physique that I wanted. So I was like, let me just do something. And one of my buddies, he actually, what was it? I think that he had success with P90. Actually, his oldest brother. So the person that I was going to run a mile with every day of the summer, his oldest brother got like shredded or lost a lot of weight from P90X. So I was like, all right, let me try this thing out. And so I did P90X for the 90 days, and I extended it to, I think, like 125 days I got to, which extended into football season because I then started back up playing football my sophomore year. And so this was the first time where I was actually like, I was working hard. I was consistently going into the basement of my mom's house, doing the daily training. So I was working hard, being consistent. I just gave it enough time, and I started to see my body change. And so for me, this was huge. And I would say this was a huge moment for me mindset-wise, because I confronted this challenge, head first finally. This was a challenge for me for so long growing up, and it was just something that I never felt I could do anything about. And so for me, finally seeing that change, because I confronted the challenge head on, I did something about it. For me, that built self-confidence. So I was like, what other challenges, what other dragons can I slay in my life? What other challenges can I confront head first? So I started challenging myself more in like academics, in sports, socially. And so I ended up being our junior class president, senior class vice president, because I was scared of public speaking at graduation. And it just like had me make and take more chances. So I owe a lot to fitness, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm giving you guys my whole journey, throughout the years of becoming a fitness influencer. But this is kind of like that first point where, finally got, I'd say pretty darn fit. And so this was a big pivotal moment for me. And then over time with, P90X, so I got fit. I did sports in high school. I did football, basketball, track. Was a decent thrower. I was okay at football. I loved basketball, but I did start, but that was not very good. And so that was kind of like my journey there. And my beliefs throughout, I'd say 2009 up until I started college. So that's going to be like more, 2013, I'd say. This was the keto years. And so I started, and this was kind of founded on P90X was like eat clean, eat way less, calorie dense junk, kind of scrap that stuff. Eat more protein and eat clean. And also buy our $80 P90X special protein that I looked at the macros later on. It was 20 grams of protein. It was like 40 grams of carbs. And it tasted like orange juice, or it was like a creamsicle kind of flavor. It was tasty, but of course for 40 grams of carbs, it better be pretty darn tasty. But I can't even say it was a protein shake. So that was something. Shout out to Mama Hejnas. Like I think she was buying me that P90X shake too, and letting me, just work out in the basement every day. So I mean, Mama Hejnas, she rocks. But so I got involved with like that P90X. So I did 125 days. Then throughout, I'll just like put this in the notes. So then 2009 through 2013, this was keto. So I just kind of kept that going. I was eating way less carbs, trying to keep carbs at zero. Got pretty lean, but I couldn't break a certain level of leanness. I couldn't get that shredded look. And also around this time, I was going to LA Fitness. Me and my buddy, we would train over the summers. We would train before football, and we get some workouts done. And then, so 2 days worked in the way in summers where, so we would wake up early, we would train, and then we had the 2 days for football. I think part of it was like weight training. So we still got our stuff done. And then also when school was going on, I would get my workouts done sometime between like 7 and 9 p.m. During the school days. So this was me during high school. Got pretty lean, was getting relatively consistent, was doing a bunch of sports. But this is when I was doing keto. So I was just like avoiding carbs like the plague. And I got relatively lean. I built some muscle because the newbie gains happened. I think I actually have photos here. Yeah. So this is actually me like junior, senior year. So I'm like, I can't say that I was like perfect at training, but like I got leaner. That's me after like 3-4 years of training, or like 3 years of training. So there's this photo as well. So if you guys have seen my like any of my like photos on, or like my side by sides, like I think that's like me senior-ish, junior, senior year of high school. So the reason why I want to show you guys this is because a lot of times I have like I'll put side by sides and people are like, well, weren't you overweight? And then like, were you skinny there? So like, where does this all fit together? This is me around like, I think senior year as well. Ooh. So, I made a little bit of gains. I'm 6'2", so I have long arms, so they were hard to fill out. But, I made some gains, but I wasn't super jacked because you don't get to the end point in 3 years. So training, going keto, avoiding carbs. And I felt sometimes like an imposter because, me and my buddies, sometimes we would get together, and on the weekends, like I wasn't good at, I was kind of doing eat clean and, avoid dirty foods. But when I would have a dirty food, it's a pizza night with the boys, or me and my buddies get together and I have one slice of pizza, the day is lost. I'm going to eat the entire pizza. I didn't know calories mattered. So if I eat something that's unhealthy, the day's ruined. I just got to eat the entire cookie pizza, and then, get cheesesteaks and all those things. It wasn't like something where I had a sense of moderation because I just didn't know that existed. I just thought like peanut butter, it's healthy. Pizza, unhealthy. If I eat one slice of pizza, might as well eat 8 slices. Even though one slice of pizza is like 250 calories and 8 slices is 2,000 calories. Same thing with a jar of peanut butter. I literally, freshman year, I'm going to get into college years, I used to have crunchy peanut butter at the top drawer in my college dorm, just with a spoon next to it. And every time I would just like walk by, I would just take a couple spoonfuls of peanut butter. So I'll explain kind of why that happened. But those are the keto years. And what I learned next after the keto years, so I got relatively lean, but I couldn't get past a certain lose. Couldn't get shredded. Then what happened is in 2013 is when I started college. So at this point, I started doing crew for a little bit. This freshman year of college, I joined the crew team because I wanted to be a thrower at school. I went to Rutgers. I couldn't find the throwing coach. And then also I just couldn't figure out how to walk onto the team. And that's a skill issue. That was on me. But I got on the crew team because I was just like a taller guy. And so they scouted me. I did my first semester. I did crew. It's rowing. It was really tough. And so did the crew team. But then I stopped doing crew. And so, yes, this was 2013. So people asked me, do you compete? And so I didn't know what that meant. So in the gym, I was just consistent in training. People asked me, do I compete? And so I ended up doing my first physique show. Man, I'm bad at this. There it is. So that was me at my first men's physique show. There was 32 competitors. I'm pretty sure I got 32nd out of them. And at this time is when I started to do a little bit of flexible dieting. So I started, instead of being so keto, I started being like, okay, maybe calories do matter. Started looking at calories. I competed. I was like 32nd out of 32 competitors. And so along this way, I was like, there's got to be a way. I got to learn. So I started getting evidence-based. So I started looking like, how can I do this better? And that's when I found flexible dieting. So kind of after that, found flexible dieting. So that's going to be like, 2014 or so. Found flexible dieting. And then I actually competed 3 more physique shows that next summer. Also not doing very well at either of them as well. But at least I knew kind of how to get lean. I just didn't have too much muscle. And I just don't think I knew how lean I actually had to go. But this was a big shift for me because when I found flexible dieting, it no longer was a limiting factor of like knowledge holding me back. Like at least I didn't feel lost. Like, oh, I'm eating 0 carbs. I can't eat 0 carbs less. And if I can't lose, weight or gain leaner, at least I knew there's a system. Flexible dieting. Okay, get to a calorie deficit. Eat enough protein. And and around here is when I hired my first coach. So my first coach, I did my first lean bulk. I think this was 2014, may have been around there, but I think it was after those physique shows. I hired a coach and did this lean bulk. And this tested the whole idea of flexible dieting. I gained 34 pounds in 10 weeks. Yeah, I gained 34 pounds in 10 weeks. So just wrote that piece in. So hired a coach. He was like $100 or something. And, with inflation, that's like $4,000 now. But I just had a coach. All he did was send me a PDF. He was like, you want to get big, bro? Okay, cool. Eat 5,200 calories a day. It was 600 grams of protein, 450 grams of carbs, and 100 grams of fat. So it was like 5,200 calories. I ate that, and I ended up gaining a ton of weight. And at first with this coach, he said, you have to eat from the smallest of clean foods, these brown rices, this brown pasta, just chicken breast, and you have to eat all these healthy, foods. Can't eat anything else. And what ended up happening is I was gaining a ton of weight quickly. And after like a week or two, I was like, why don't I just hit the macros with just food I actually enjoy? And I just continued. I did that, and I continued to gain weight at the same rate. Because this showed me that if I'm eating clean and I'm gaining, 10 pounds in my first week, if I ate dirty, and I eat the same amount of calories, like, am I going to gain 15 pounds in the next 7 days? Like, I don't think it gets any faster than 10 pounds in a week necessarily. So tested that hypothesis, and that's kind of how I found flexible dieting, which became very helpful. And that put me in the driver's seat when it came to dieting throughout college. So after that experience, that gave me the belief in calories matter. So through 2014 to like 2018, during college, had control through flexible dieting, was able to get lean, was able to build muscle, joined powerlifting. Well, actually, no. Co-founded the Rutgers powerlifting team, and then we competed internationally twice at IPF Worlds, and that was 2016 and 2017. So in Potchefstroom, South Africa in 2017, and it was Belarus, Minsk, Belarus in 2016. And I was not the reason we competed there. I co-founded the team. Shout out to Dallas, my fellow co-founder. But we just had a really, really strong team. And so what happened here, though, in 2018 is when I went to pharmacy school rotations. And this is when I had to learn efficiency. So for me, in 2018, I had to learn how to get efficient with like training, because now I know that if I'm going to work, because at this time I started my coaching business, and I was checking in on clients like every day. So I was doing that like probably 10, 20 hours a week. I was creating content. I was vlogging on like one or two. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Great question, Greg. I'm going to get to that one. Crap, totally lost my train of thought. But yeah, I'm going to answer that question, Greg. Some of the transformations that stick out to us. But yeah, I had to learn efficiency when I got into pharmacy school rotations, because at that time I was doing, 20 hours of like my coaching business. I had a failing apparel business as well. I was doing, the vlogs, the YouTube weekly vlogs, posting like 2 to 3 times a day on like Instagram and other social medias. And then rotations was like 40 to 50 hours or something a week. So I had to get very, very efficient in terms of my time. And that's where I started getting efficient with like my workouts. So at this point, that's when I really started to learn, again, efficiency. So that's going to be, supersets. I got more into hypertrophy training coming from that strength background. Well, I did powerlifting the majority of my late collegiate career. And then I got into learning efficiency and streamlining my training, because I couldn't train 2 to 3 hours per day anymore. That's kind of the demands of powerlifting at times. So I really streamlined things, got more into supersets, just tracking my macros in terms of like being efficient on my protein, my calories, supersets. That's when I really got into training early. Actually, I'll be honest, I've been training early pretty much since I started crew in 2013, because that started having me get up at like 5 a.m. or so. But kept that going and made sure to, this helped me make things more realistic, especially for people that are, not me, the people we work with in HFP. As Greg asked, not asking you to name names unless you want to, but with all the great transformations we've had in the Healthy Flex prescription, which transformations stand out to you the most? I would say like one of them would definitely be here. Can I pull this up? Let me see if I can. Oh, I can do it here. But yeah, Matt Paver would be definitely one of them. He lost 140 pounds in the program. Coaching. So would definitely say, he's going to be one of them. I can give you guys just like a quick run through of a couple. Coaching, boom. So yeah, so Matt lost 140 pounds, top left. Austin losing 50 pounds, PhD student. So getting it done while also working a really busy schedule. Derek, someone working in like tech, getting it done as well. Matt, I would say here is Matt number 2. We'd like to say he just gained 10 pounds and got that much leaner, but it was a cyclical process. We did a fat loss phase, we did a mass gain phase, fat loss phase. Then we really got into mass gaining for the long term, and he got really, really darn jacked. But we have had a lot of people that have just been really hard workers in HFP. Mike losing about 70 pounds as well. But yeah, a lot of people that have just crushed it in the program. And if you go on oh, here's Gareth too. I remember when he started the program, so the bottom left, when he started the program, I think he was, I actually have to update this one. I think we have another one. But when he started the program, he thought that age was the big limiting factor for him. And he ended up losing, I think that was like 38 pounds there, but he did another fat loss phase. He lost 41 pounds at 41 years old. And I remember he said, I'm 41. I don't know if I can get this done because of age. And he ended up making it happen. But great question, Greg. And just kind of finishing out like my story in terms of like, my fitness journey and like, was I always looking to be a fitness influencer or coach? Not necessarily, but like I got pretty darn good at this stuff. This is my history. And 2018 was actually when I graduated pharmacy school. This is when HFP, the Healthy Flex prescription, my coaching program was started. So originated in May 2018. Since then, we've worked with, I believe, pre-HFP, I worked with like 200 people or so, but in HFP, I believe it's 1,100 or 1,200. So in total, it's like 1,300 plus people we've been able to work with in total. And so really had to learn a lot. This is kind of my journey where I've learned. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I'm fortunate for those mistakes because that made me have to learn myself better. And then also now helps us, now that we've learned, helped us coach better. And then also helps us coach, now today having worked with, over 1,000 people. And then I can just like give a couple other things, but the pivotal pieces were like just getting started for me, in 2008 and 2009, like stop blaming my genetics, just do something. That was a pivotal moment for me. Then I would say when I found flexible dieting more in like 2013, 2014 area, where I figured out flexible dieting and was able to kind of feel that control was big for me. And then finally, the next pivotal moment was like learning how to be more efficient and realistic with like a working lifestyle, which for me was really useful. And then over here, just like rounding things out, I competed in bodybuilding again. I think I did 4 shows, and I think in 3 of them, 3 shows, I got like 1 placing away from my pro card. So 3 shows, 1 placing away from pro card. And this is coming from being 32nd out of 32 people in my first show. Granted, that was an NPC show. It's non-drug tested. These were all drug tested shows, but these were also bodybuilding instead of men's physique. So it bounces out a little bit, but I still say like these are more realistic for a drug tested person. And then what happened between 20? I feel like once you graduate college or high school, like kind of every year starts to be a blur, like for me. And so, through 2020 to 2024, I would just kind of go into, 23 it was. I competed at, I think it was another 3 shows and won my OCB pro card. So that was cool. And I guess we'll say, other cool stuff is PharmD was in 2018. And that's kind of been like the journey overall. And still learning to this day. And like kind of what's next for me, I guess I would say is, the journey of the side quest is really interesting. I think me and Nicole, we want to start a family. And I want to be faster, stronger, and leaner than my kids for as long as I can be. And they're going to have to beat me in races or beat me in bench press. And I got to keep winning for as long as I can. So this year is going to be the year of the side quest, which is going to be running. So I'm doing some obstacle courses, and I'm also doing a marathon at the end of the year, which I'm very, very excited for. And I don't know how many weeks out, but I'm just doing whatever's in front of my plate in terms of getting the work done. But that's going to close it out for this long-winded, but that's my fitness journey, kind of like, I guess start to in current process. But I love this game of fitness, and I'm excited to stay in the game for, many years to come. I'm probably going to compete again in bodybuilding, maybe 2027, and potentially next year may be the side quest year, potentially CrossFit. We'll see how it plays out. But let's get into some Q&A.